afraid of the dark.
In October 2016, I had a seasonal job at Party City, which was especially busy during the Halloween season. I worked the night shifts on weekdays, with my shift typically running from 5 p.m. to 11 p.m. On the night in question, I began my shift as a costume grabber, retrieving specific costumes for customers upon request. After the initial rush, I was tasked with cleaning up, restocking, and moving items between the store and the basement. By 10 p.m., only a handful of us were still working: Maria at the cash register, Kyle cleaning and stocking, Ashley as the supervisor, and me. I took a short break and then resumed carrying boxes from the basement to the costume storage room upstairs. The basement lights had been turned off, so I flipped the switch back on and headed down. As I lifted a box of girls' costumes, I heard a noise on the other side of the basement. Curious and slightly unnerved, I put down the box and peered around the central shelf. To my surprise, I saw someone wearing a white hooded robe costume with a scary monster mask. Startled, I jumped back, assuming it was one of my coworkers playing a prank. I thought it might be Ashley, but quickly realized the person was too tall to be her, so I suspected it was Kyle. I approached the figure, asking them to remove the mask, but they only backed away. I noticed their shoes heavy, dirty work boots, and knew Kyle wasn't wearing those. Feeling uneasy, I returned upstairs without running, not wanting to appear suspicious. I closed the basement door and immediately sought out Ashley. I asked Ashley about Kyle's whereabouts, and he responded from a nearby aisle. I then inquired if there was anyone else working that night, and Ashley confirmed that everyone else had gone home. I explained that there was someone in the basement, dressed in a costume, who didn't belong there. Ashley and Kyle accompanied me to the basement, but when we arrived, the mysterious figure was gone. There was a back exit in the costume room upstairs, which was used for unloading shipments, and it seemed likely that the intruder had used it to escape. Ashley checked the security footage from the past hour, but only found footage of me entering the costume room. There were no cameras in the basement or the costume room itself. I felt conflicted, thinking it might be a prank, but I also needed to finish my work. I returned to the basement, determined to complete my task. As I picked up the box of costumes again, I thought I heard the sound of a plastic bag crumpling. Unwilling to investigate alone, I hurried upstairs with the box. My shift was almost over, and I didn't feel safe enough to stay any longer. After dropping the box in the costume room, I went to turn off the basement lights. As I looked down the staircase, I saw the figure in the white robe costume again, but this time the mask was off, revealing a smiling face staring up at me. Terrified, I slammed the door and ran to Ashley and the others, screaming for help. They rushed to the costume room, but both the back exit and the basement door were wide open. The intruder had vanished. The outdoor delivery area camera hadn't captured any sign of him. I wasn't sure if he had stolen anything besides the costume he was wearing. It could have been a Halloween prank, but I couldn't shake the feeling that he might have had more sinister intentions. I treated the situation as a potential threat, as if my life were in danger, and I was grateful to have my coworkers' support during that unnerving experience. October has always been my favorite month, with its pleasant temperatures and the beautiful transformation of leaves into shades of orange and brown. The crisp, refreshing breeze is simply delightful. When I was younger, between the ages of 9 and 12, my friends Liam, Billy, and I would often rake up the fallen leaves into a giant pile and have wrestling matches, pretending we were in the WWWD. One late, cloudy and windy October day when we were around 10 or 11 years old, we were raking leaves on my property, which was the largest among my friends. Our house was on a corner lot with a spacious side yard next to a sidewalk that led to a short dead-end street. The street had only two houses, one owned by an unbothered stoner couple, and another small, disheveled house across the street whose owner was rarely seen. This gave us the freedom to be loud and playful without worrying about bothering neighbors. After about half an hour of wrestling in the leaves, we went inside for a snack and some video games. Eager for more fun, Liam and Billy suggested a nighttime wrestling match, which we called a triple threat match. When we went back outside, it was almost completely dark, but a street light in the dead end illuminated our side yard enough for us to see. We noticed that the leaf pile had significantly diminished, so we started rebuilding it. Liam spotted an odd-looking pile of leaves and began raking it towards our main pile. As he struggled, he shouted that there was something underneath. We rushed over to help and were shocked to discover a grown man hiding beneath the leaves. We stood there, unsure whether to laugh or take it as an early Halloween prank. Liam and I dared Billy to uncover the man's face. He approached cautiously, and as he kicked the leaves away, we realized the body was fake, hollow and hard, with no face or head. It was a prank, but who was behind it? Our question was soon answered when we spotted someone hiding in the bushes behind the pile. We confronted the man, who came out laughing, claiming he wanted to play a joke on us since he had been watching us play in the leaves. The man was older, around 60, with bulging eyes and crooked teeth, and he was breathing heavily, which creeped me out. Liam tried to be friendly, but I found the man strange, so I suggested we go inside. We left him there and I told my dad about the incident. By the time my dad went to check, the man had already moved the fake body. We spent the rest of the night playing video games, agreeing that the man was a bit of a freak. After my friends left, I went to my room, where I usually kept the window open for the fresh breeze. As I watched TV, I heard a man's voice at my window. Startled, I looked up but couldn't see anyone. The voice claimed he didn't mean to creep me out earlier and that he lived in the house across the street, where he enjoyed watching us play in the leaves. Then, to my horror, the familiar face of the man from earlier appeared at my window. He tried to push the window up to climb in but couldn't fit. He seemed to reach for me, and I screamed for my dad. I ran to his room, pulled him out of bed, and led him to my window. The man was gone, but I told my dad he lived in the house across the street in the dead end. My dad immediately went to confront the man, accompanied by me. He banged on the door, but there was no answer, so he called the police. When the officers arrived, the man finally opened the door, and it was indeed the same person. Although I was too young to understand, my dad and the police suspected he was under the influence of crystal meth, given his appearance and the state of his disheveled home. Looking back, it was chilling to realize that this man had been watching us play in the leaves all those years, and we had no idea we were being observed by a creepy meth addict living right across the street. Last October, I decided to take a girl named Nikki, whom I had met at a party a month earlier, on an apple picking date. We had been hanging out regularly for a few weeks, and she was keen on doing some seasonal activities. I suggested going apple picking, and she loved the idea. We set off in my car, heading out of the suburbs and into the more rural areas of New Jersey, where there are plenty of orchards to choose from. After about a half-hour drive, we passed an apple orchard and decided to check it out. We turned down a dirt road leading to a small wooden farmhouse, but the place seemed deserted. There were no cars, people, or even a stand for customers. The house looked poorly maintained, almost abandoned. Feeling uneasy, Nikki suggested we move on, so we got back in the car and continued to our original destination. When we arrived at the second orchard, it was also surprisingly empty, though it at least had a closed sign. I proposed a daring idea, going back to the first orchard and picking apples there, having the entire place to ourselves. Nikki was hesitant, but I managed to convince her. We parked discreetly on the grass near the woods and made our way through the crunchy leaves on a dirt path. We hopped over a small wooden fence and were soon hidden among the rows of tall, thick apple trees, our feet concealed by the tall grass. We started filling plastic bags with the best apples we could find, though there weren't many. There was a thrilling sense of adventure in doing something we weren't supposed to. I playfully tossed apples in the air, pretending to throw them at Nikki, who would run and hide in the rows of trees. At one point, I pretended to throw an apple at her, and she ran off, cutting through the trees to another row. I called out to her, but she didn't respond. After a few minutes of searching, I suddenly heard her voice, but it sounded distant, as if she was in another row. She was picking her own apples, and I apologized, assuring her I had stopped. However, she didn't reply, and soon an apple landed in front of me, followed by another one nearby. I yelled for the person to stop, fearing I might get hit. I ran through the trees, looking left and right, trying to find Nikki. As I turned a corner, my heart skipped a beat. There, standing in the center of the row, was a young guy, around 18 or 19 years old, with long black hair down to his shoulders. He had a slight smirk on his face and didn't move, which unnerved me. I quickly squeezed through the trees to the next row and then the next, trying to put distance between us. That's when Nikki called my phone, sounding panicked. She whispered that there was a creepy guy following her, and he looked like he wanted to hurt her. Her description matched the young man I had just seen. I told her to meet me back at the car, and I ran as fast as I could. When I reached the car, Nikki was already there. As we discussed what had happened, she suddenly pointed and exclaimed that the guy was there, half hidden by an apple tree. We could only see part of his body, and he seemed to be watching us. I quickly did a three-point turn and drove off the grass onto the dirt road, passing the decrepit farmhouse. On our way back, we stopped at a fruit stand on the side of the road, hoping to buy some apples and berries. I asked the two ladies working there about the first orchard, and they warned us that no one should ever go near it. They revealed a chilling story: the owner's son had killed his girlfriend and then disappeared, with her body found near the orchard in the forest. The father still owned the orchard but rarely returned and didn't cooperate with the police. I admitted to the ladies that we had been apple picking on that property and that a creepy young man had followed us. They scolded us for not calling the police and were grateful we had left when we did. One of the ladies said she would inform the police. On our drive home, Nikki and I discussed the terrifying experience, but I couldn't stop thinking about the possibility that I had encountered a missing murderer in that orchard. The memory still sends chills down my spine, wondering if that guy is still out there.